guys, it's Pete, and I'm here with Matt, and we are going to be breaking down this very exciting semifinal I know everybody's excited about between Rafael Nadal and Dominic Thiem. This is a dream matchup. Matt, I know you're really excited about this one, right?
Hey, guys. Yeah, super excited over here.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's a great matchup. We got Rafa, who is going for his 10th French Open, and Dominic Thiem, who is one of the young guns who might be the first one to break through and actually win a Grand Slam. He's looking pretty good. In fact, both these players, I would say, are looking downright unbeatable right now. Wouldn't you agree with that, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, after seeing what Dominic Thiem did to Djokovic, I'd say he looks very unbeatable, although Djokovic is admittedly.
Yep. Lost Matt there for a second, though. But, yeah, I think what Matt was saying is that he took out Djokovic, beat him 6-0 in the third set. Certainly Djokovic is not the old Djokovic, but you still do have to give Dominic Thiem a lot of credit. And pretty much everybody that Dominic Thiem has played in the French Open, it's been the same thing anyway. It doesn't matter who he's played. He's destroyed everybody, and so has Rafael Nadal. So I know you got some cool little stats over there on your chalkboard, Matt, so I'm going to let you go to work. Why don't you break down what you see of this match?
Okay, awesome. Well, first off, one of the biggest stats of all is in best-of-5 matches on the clay, Nadal is 102. So those are the 2 losses, of course, that came at the French Open. And I mean, that's the best stat of all. It's going to be really hard for Dominic Thiem to break through and beat Nadal when he's had that kind of success, best out of 5. Now, you'll notice I got over here 6-4, 6-3. That was the score line in Rome when Dominic Thiem did beat Nadal. That's the one loss Nadal has on clay this year. And obviously, that's going to be great for Dominic Thiem going into the match. It's going to give him confidence. But I think, and I remember thinking the whole clay court season, the way Nadal was just winning every tournament he entered, I kind of expected him to get tired from winning so much and having to play every single day. You know what I mean? Week in, week out.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good point, is that, and I think that fatigue might have played a factor when Thiem beat Rafa. But then again, I watched a lot of the highlights, and Rafa looked pretty good in that match, and Thiem was just incredible. And he was doing a couple of different things that he I think he's played Rafa 3 times now in the clay court season, lost the first 2, and then he won the last one. And I was watching the one he won, the highlights of the one he won versus when he lost the first match. And there was a couple things that stood out to me. Number one, it looked like he was having trouble in the first match returning Rafa's out wide lefty serve. Like he didn't quite know whether to go back, because he typically likes to stand way back and then hit a big, high, heavy toss and backhand. He was trying to cheat in, but he wasn't. He was just kind of getting the ball back. Where I noticed in the match where he won, he was starting to do kind of what Federer did at the Australian Open in Miami, where he was really stepping in the backhand return and getting an advantage on Rafa's serve, getting an early advantage in the point. And he was still, both these players, interestingly enough, like to play on the baseline. They like to play off the baseline. So that would be interesting to see how the court position, how that unfolds in the match. But Thiem was stepping in closer, I think, in that match. He beat Rafa on more occasion, and he was just crushing his backhand. He was hitting big backhand winners out there. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how this all unfolds, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I will say, since we're talking about return of serve, and I did notice that, Pete, that he changed. Obviously, coaching was a factor. He changed the strategy on the returns, specifically on the ad side with the out wide to the backhand. But I still think the fatigue played a factor. I think Nadal is going to be able to dig a lot deeper, no matter what kind of returns he's getting off a team. And also about return, 49% of the time, Thiem was winning against Djokovic. So Thiem basically won half of all of Djokovic's serves. That's incredible. And if he's able to do that against Nadal, then I could see Nadal losing this match. But like you said, the lefty serve, it's a little bit different, and maybe Thiem might have more trouble with the fact that it's a lefty and it's Rafa.
Yeah, that's a big number. A couple of things that Rafa has going for him is he might have been tired going into that match they played in Rome because he was winning every tournament. The tournaments were back to back to back, and also he had a lot of convincing wins, but there were some matches where it was tough physically. And the French then for the French Open, you get that week of practice, and he has just destroyed all his opponents to where I think he's actually well rested going into this match. I think he feels fresh, where you could see I might feel tired. And so I think that's going to be interesting to see. Going to just be his old self, to where Thiem is going to be, I think Thiem is going to have to take more chances in the match. I think he's going to have to hit more winners than Rafa to have a chance to beat Rafa. And it'll be interesting to see if Rafa's legs are fresh, if he's able to frustrate Thiem by kind of, cutting off his attacks and counterpunching. Then ultimately, one thing that Rafa does so well is after he fights off a couple really tough balls, then Rafa's able to immediately take offense if you leave one hanging. And he loves to run around the backhand and hit a big inside-out forehand. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how Thiem's offense is going to match up against Rafa's defense. How do you think that's going to play out, Matt?
Well, I know there was a high winner count against Djokovic. I believe Dominic had 38 winners in that match against Djokovic. And will he be able to do it against Nadal? Obviously, Nadal is in much better form than Djokovic was in. So I think Nadal will be able to neutralize that firepower at least more effectively than Djokovic did. And also, you pointed out the rest. This is actually the easiest Nadal has ever got to the semifinals. The easiest path he's ever had. He's never lost so few games. In fact, in his last 20 sets, he hasn't lost more than 4 games in any of them. So, with numbers like that, it's hard to favor anybody against Nadal.
That is a pretty impressive stat and very daunting for Dominic Thiem. When you put that number up, that he's 102 at the French Open, and now he's had his most dominant French Open leading into the semifinals, that is really, really hard to imagine that anybody could beat Rafa. But one thing that I do think is very interesting is that, and it's not on paper, but I think for both players, the swag factor is very high, right? I think Rafa is very confident that he's on his surface that he loves. He's at the tournament that he loves, and he finally feels very good physically, and he's playing with, like he likes to say, with the right feelings. He's feeling the ball again. And one thing that was interesting is Serena's coach, who's commentating this French Open, he talked about how a year ago, how Rafa's rotations on the ball had dropped down to something like 2,200, and now they're back above that 3,000, which so many people have always marveled at, is how he's able to get so much rotation on the ball. Well, that is back now. So I'm sure that has Rafa feeling very, very good. And then I think Dominic Thiem, he cannot be feeling any better about himself. He beat Rafa on clay already, and then he lost to Djokovic, but then he came back and beat Djokovic in this tournament. So he's beaten 2 legends of the game within inside of a month. That's got to make him feel good.
Yeah, no question. He's absolutely feeling great, I would imagine. But Nadal's got to be feeling great. Now, you did point out this is Nadal's favorite surface. This is also Dominic Thiem's favorite surface as well. So, he had his breakthrough last year getting to the semifinals, and that was really his, coming out party. We all knew he was really talented. But when he got to the semis last year, that was when we knew this guy's for real. He's ready to do some damage. Then didn't do as well at the other majors, but obviously this is his best surface. He's here to cash in again. He just happens to be running into the king of clay, greatest clay player of all time. I want to ask, how do you think Nadal's return is going to be a factor? In the Djokovic match, good numbers for Dominic Thiem. 74% was his win percentage on his first serve, and he was winning over half the time on his second serve, and he got a pretty high percentage of first serves in, so that 74% played a major role. How do you think he's going to be able to serve against Nadal? Is it going to be much different than when he was serving against Djokovic, which is obviously a great return?
Yeah, I think one of the things to watch out for, you made a great point. I think one of Thiem's greatest shots, it is what I like to call a sick kick. He stands, if you notice, a little further over than a lot of players. So he stands a little further out there, and he really kicks that ball, and that thing goes way off the court on the ad side. Now, for most people, he's able to get that to their backhand because most people he's playing, well, they're righties, so that's going to the backhand. But against Rafa, that's going to the forehand. And so it's going to be interesting to see if he can put Rafa in trouble with his kick serve, because it is going to Rafa's forehand. Now, as far as Rafa and his return, when I was watching him play points against Thiem, he was standing way back. He seemed like he was consistently standing far back and just trying to get heavy spin and get in the point. So with Thiem, I think it's going to be how much offense can he take on the return to serve, and how much can he get the early advantage. With Rafa, it looks like how much can he get the return back and not get hurt? Like, can he get the return back and be in at least a neutral or better position in the point? I think if he can do that, he's going to have a great day out there and win a lot of points and be able to break Thiem. But if he's standing back and his return is going a little short and allowing Thiem to come into the court and hit big forehands and hit big backhands, then that's going to give Thiem a fighting chance to win this thing.
All right, so this is the part where we put our money where our mouths are, and I'm going to start with you, Pete. What's your pick? Who wins, and what's the score line look like?
I really don't even want to do this. I really, there's such a good case for both players to where they both are very, very confident right now. They're both playing about as well as they can play. Rafa's got his rotation on his ball. Thiem, I think, has a little more variety in his game. Not to knock Rafa. I mean, if you look at Rafa, I think that's one thing that's underestimated about Rafa is, because we all know he likes heavy spin. He likes the big forehand. When he plays Roger Federer, he hits like 90% of his shots to the backhand. So, and he plays against, Roger is his biggest rival. So you always look at the flair versus the grit. But especially on the clay, Rafa is very good at coming up with drop shots. He's not afraid to come to the net and end points. When they get in little duels at the net, he's got a lot of great little angle touch shots. I mean, Rafa has a lot of different things that he can do on the court. But I think if you're just looking at the two of them, that you'd have to give Thiem a little bit of the advantage as far as ability to probably hit through the court and hit more winners, a little bit of more flair in his game with the ability to come over and then hit a very pretty nasty slice on his backhand. I also wonder if Rafa is going to be a little nervous because he probably knows this is going to be one of the biggest tests. That if he can get through Thiem, he could probably get and win, his 10th French Open. So I think Rafa, now that he's older, he knows that, there's probably not many more chances to win the French Open. He knows he can get in double digits. I wouldn't be surprised if he's just a little nervous. And I think Thiem is going to be nervous too, but he's more in that position where he's got nothing to lose. He's got a big opportunity to make a statement. And I think he's got a little more firepower. I certainly am not going to be surprised if Rafa wins the match, but I'm going to go with the dark horse only because my man Carver Arant, who I teach tennis to, who's going to Mercer, he said Thiem would win this tournament before the tournament even happened. He called it before he even beat Rafa in Rome. So Carver Arant, this pick's for you. I'm going to pick Dominic Thiem, and I know that everybody's going to kill me on YouTube, but I'm doing it for you, buddy.
Wow. Yeah, so he made that pick long before the draw even came out.
It was pretty ballsy.
Yeah, well, I guess you got to assume if you're going to pick him to win, you got to assume that he's going to have to go through Nadal at some point, and it just happens to be the semifinals. Well, I'm going to give you my pick. I think Rafa's going to win it, and I think it's going to be a bit like the semifinal we saw at this year's Australian Open, where he took Dimitrov in 5 sets. So I think he's going to take another young gun down, 5 sets. I agree with you. I think Rafa's going to be a little nervous. I think there's a chance we could see Rafa lose the first set even. And I think Thiem's going to show up. I think he's ready. This is his moment, but I think the King of Clay is going to have the last say. Also, I'm pretty sure about this, that this is the last trip for Uncle Tony and Rafa together as a team.
Yeah.
And this French Open. So that's special there too. I can't see Rafa, no matter how nervous he is, in the course of that 5-set match, he's going to find it. And he's just going to do whatever he has to do, just like he's always done. And I thought about saying this earlier. It's a little crazy. I think this might be Rafa's last French Open as well. I think he'll win it, and I don't think he'll win it again.
Okay, so this is like his final chance to win. You think this is the last kind of legitimate chance he has to win? I don't know if I agree with that. One thing you said that was interesting, though, is you mentioned that Rafa beat Dimitrov in the semifinals of the Australian Open, and Carver, and I don't know how he did this, but out of nowhere, he picked Dimitrov to win the Australian Open, and Dimitrov was 1 match away from the finals. So, but who stopped him was Rafa. So that is a good omen for you, Matt, to where, you know, that might play in your favor. Rafa might stop both of Carver's pick in the semifinals, and I hope.
In 5 sets.
Yeah, I hope for the tennis fans out there that the match is every bit as good as that Australian Open semifinal, because that match, Dimitrov put his heart into that match. He played the match of his life. He threw everything possible at Rafa, and Rafa is so darn tough that it still wasn't enough. And I think that match has ruined the rest of Dimitrov's year. So that's like another topic for another video. If Rafa stops Dominic Thiem in a heartbreaker, will that devastate Thiem to where it ruins, you know, his shooting star? Or will he, no matter what happens, still have confidence that he went so far and did so good that we're going to start to see him regularly in quarters, semis, and finals of majors and consistently competing for Grand Slams? That's what's been missing, is every once in a while, it seems like every couple of years, we have somebody who's not a legend who we think has an outside chance to win, and it looks like they might do it, and they fall short, and then they just go right back with the rest of the herd, and the only people who are legitimate contenders seem to always be Roger, Rafa, Murray, and Djokovic. What do you think?
Look at Milos Raonic last year at Wimbledon. He made it to the finals. And what did he do since then?
Yeah, and he looked like he was ready to win. And when he played that finals at Wimbledon, he said that I'm not playing for second place. He kind of let everybody know he was kind of fed up with, you know, just having good results and being the player who has potential. He said he was ready to win majors. He didn't do it. And ever since then, he's had a lot of physical problems, and he just hasn't been able to even come close. He actually had a pretty good French Open, was moving along very smoothly in the draw, but then, you know, he's not here in the final stage. So, it's going to be really interesting to see the outcome of this. I would really like to see either player win. If Thiem wins, I think it's going to be great for tennis, because it could be a passing of the guard here to where, I don't think Rafa is going to be done after this by any stretch, but at least it shows that I would like to see one of these young people win a Grand Slam without having Djokovic, Federer, and Nadal and Murray retire, because then that kind of like delegitimizes the next crop. You could always say, well, they had to wait for these guys to retire to win a major, and then I think it makes tennis a lot less interesting. But if they can actually win against a legend when the legend is at their best game, I think it's a great way to keep tennis healthy and to keep the interest of it up. And of course, if Rafa wins, it's a beautiful story that he's been down and out for the last couple of years, and then he comes back and wins his 10th French Open. What say you, Matt?
Yeah, it'd be absolutely a beautiful story. I hope it happens. It's good for tennis. It's just as good for tennis as Federer winning earlier this year. It'd be great for tennis if Federer wins at Wimbledon, and it's great for tennis if Rafa wins tomorrow. And if he wins in the final on Sunday, I really think he will. And I really think it's just going to be hard for him to get number 11 if he does win it this time. To win any major, I think. We saw him get so close at this year's Australian Open, and Federer was there of all people to stop him. But for a great match. I don't think it's going to ruin Dominic Thiem's year if he loses, but I do think it'll ruin his Wimbledon. It's at least going to set him back a month or 2. But I think we'll see Dominic Thiem looking good come the U.S. Open. And, I don't have faith in the big men like Raonic. I can't really think of a big guy who's won more than one major. I think of, Juan Martín del Potro, who's got his one U.S. Open. And his name, I can't think of the big Croatian who won Wimbledon one time.
Ivanisevic.
And, Ivanisevic. And who's another big man who's got more than one major, or even one major?
Well, Krajicek had a major, and I think Stich did. But, yeah, you're right. It's pretty much one and done for when you're over 6'5". I think it's just tough to go through those 2 weeks physically. I think people who are taller, their body just hurts more after long matches. So I think there's definitely like the perfect height for tennis is probably that 6'3" to 6'1". Height. I thought it was fun. I was waiting for the shoe to drop, man. I knew eventually you were going to get your Federer, little digs in there as far as winning Wimbledon. I mean, there's no way you can go a whole video without mentioning Roger Federer, huh? Even if he's not in the tournament.
No chance, especially we're getting so close to Wimbledon. I mean, I don't know how long has it been that I've just been waiting for this part of the year all year. It's my Christmas watching what Federer does at Wimbledon every year. It's better than Christmas.
Well, we have to stay focused on the French Open a little longer, okay? So we've put our picks out there for this semifinal match. Now, what's going to happen is Matt and I are going to take a 5-minute break. We're going to get some water. We're going to towel off. But we're going to come back. And we're
it's a changeover.
Yeah, it's a changeover. But, yeah, right, we're going to have a brief changeover. And then we're going to come back and we're going to do the Stan Wawrinka, Andy Murray prediction. And, guys, make sure that you guys comment and let us know. I think another thing we'll do is we'll read through everybody's comments here in the next couple of minutes who's commented live. And then if you're not watching this live, you can always, at the end of the video, we're going to put an end screen up and you can toggle back and forth between those two. Also look at Matt's Novak Djokovic theorem about Novak quitting and why he quit. It was put up yesterday and it's already got 14,000 views. And people either strongly agree with Matt or they strongly disagree. So you feel free to do either one. We would appreciate more people hitting the like button. That would be nice. And but Matt did a really interesting video, and I suggest you all check that one out too. Matt, anything you want to say before we sign off and come back for our second prediction of the night?
Just an interesting theory about Djokovic. Well, not a theory, really. It's rumors are already starting that Djokovic is considering taking a break and maybe even skipping Wimbledon. So good news for Fed fans if Djokovic skips Wimbledon. Seems like it's the only person who's been able to stop him there for a while now. And just ponder on that out there while we take our changeover.
All right, guys. Good stuff, Matt. And we'll be back very soon.